نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. My respected elders and brothers, mothers and sisters, we had stopped at ayah number 77. The surah ends at 98 ayats, so we have 21 verses or 21 ayats remaining. If we go in the tafsir, we won't be able to finish today. So I'll just inshallah do the translation, a minute or two where the detail is needed, we'll go in the details. And inshallah we'll finish the surah. Before we start the translation, a summary of what will be mentioned today. Last time we stopped at the incident of As ibn Wa'il when he said to Khabbab bin Arat radiallahu an that I won't return your money to you that I owe you unless you leave Islam and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said this can never happen. Even you die and the day of judgment will come, this will never happen. So then he mocked him and said, on the day of judgment, Allah will give me more wealth and children, there I will return the money that I owe you. So Allah revealed the ayah that have you then seen him who rejected our verses and said, I shall certainly be given wealth and children. So what is the reply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to As ibn Wa'il? This is one thing. Secondly, Allah will mention to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that for the kuffar, for the non-believers, for the zalimeen, for the oppressors, Allah has a countdown. They don't get the punishment right away. Allah gives them respite and Allah gives them space. The third topic that will be discussed would be what would be the treatment of the muttaqeen, the pious people on the day of judgment, and what would be the treatment of the mujrimeen, the sinners and the disobedient people of Allah and the non-Muslims on the day of judgment. And the fourth item that will be mentioned would be that how huge is this sin that once somebody associates partners with Allah. Like the Christians say that Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, is the son of Allah. How huge it is. If Allah allows it effects to go and penetrate, the world would collapse right away. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not allowing this to happen. And at the end, Allah mentions about Jannah and one of the purposes of the Quran, why it has been revealed upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these 4 or 5 topics are mentioned in the next 21 ayats. I'll start the translation, inshallah, from the same ayah, last ayah that we did last time. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أفرأيت الذي كفر بآياتنا. O Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, have you then seen him who rejected our ayats, our verses, وَقَالَ لَأُوتَيَنَّ مَالًا وَوَلَدًا, and said, I shall certainly be given mal, wealth, وَوَلَدًا, and children, meaning As ibn Wa'il. أَطَّلَعَ الْغَيْبَ, has he peeped into the unseen, meaning has he seen something in the hereafter? أَمِ اتَّخَذَ عِنْدَ الرَّحْمَنِ عَهْدًا, or has he taken a promise and a contract with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ar-Rahman, the All-Merciful? Has he signed a contract that he can say this, that Allah will give him so much in the hereafter? Or has he lifted the curtain and has he seen what's happening in the hereafter? Kalla, hargiz nahi, never. Sanaktubu ma yaqulu. We, meaning Rasulullah subhanahu wa ta'ala, saying, we will write what he says. وَنَمُدُّ لَهُ مِنَ الْعَذَابِ مَدًّا, and extend for him, increase for him the punishment extensively. وَنَرِثُهُ مَا يَقُولُ وَيَأْتِينَا فَرْدًا, and we will inherit from him what he is talking about, meaning everything is being recorded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيَأْتِينَا فَرْدًا, and he will come to us all alone. He thinks that he will have children and mal on the day of judgment. He will come alone. Everybody will be alone in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ آلِهَةً. Now the topic finishes here. Allah mentions the idol worshippers. وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ آلِهَةً. They have taken gods other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why have they taken gods other than Allah? Meaning the kuffar of Makkah. لِيَكُونُوا لَهُمْ عِزًّا, so that they may be a source of might and support for them. It is mentioned that more than 300 idols were lying in the Kaaba. When they used to do the tawaf of the Kaaba, they used to do the tawaf of the idols also. The idol of rain, the idol of job, the idol of name, the idol of fame. For every different reason, there was an idol. They believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they said these are middle people. Through them we will reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is mentioning why are they taking the idols? So they can gain honor and izzat and might through them. But it will be the opposite on the day of judgment. Kalla, never. Sayakfuruna bi'ibadatihim. They, their own idols, their fabricated deities, will soon reject their having worshipped them. You worship them. On the day of judgment, the idols, Allah will give them tongue, whether they were made of stone or whether they were made of wood. Like the ayat says in Surah Yasin, Allah will give tongue and speaking power to the hands and to the limbs. And they will say, "Oh Allah, so and so spot in the dunya, he did sin with me." We won't be able to stop our own limbs from speaking. So likewise, Allah will give speaking power to the idols, and they will say, "No, they never worshipped us." So imagine the humiliation of the non-believers. They are saying we worship them. The idols are saying, "No, they never worshipped us." Sayakfuruna bi'ibadatihim. They will soon reject their having worshipped them. وَيَكُونُونَ عَلَيْهِمْ ضِدًّا, and they will just be the opposite for them. Instead of might, they will be a source of humiliation for them. In the tafsir, it is written on the day of judgment, the idols they invoked instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will disown the mushrikeen, will disown the polytheists, as the Quran has mentioned earlier in Surah Yunus, more or less to the nearest meaning in ayah number 28 of Surah Yunus. Then we will cause a split between them, and their associate gods will say, "It was not us that you worship." The ayat continues, Kalla. Okay, this we read. Alam tara anna. The third topic begins from here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Alam tara anna. Have you not seen that? Arsalna shayatina. We have sent the shayateen, the devils, alal kafirina, onto the disbelievers. Ta'uzzuhum azza, and these devils incite them. Unko jo hai bhadkate hain. Inciting them with all their incitement. So when the devils incite the non-believers, they commit the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَلَا تَعْجَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ. So make no hurry about them. إِنَّمَا نَعُدُّ لَهُمْ عَدًّا. We are but counting for them a countdown. Meaning Allah has fixed a time. Until when will Allah give them time, and when will Allah grab them? So there's a countdown to the punishment of the non-believers, whether in this world or whether in the hereafter. In the footnotes it's written, the verse signifies that the Muslims should not hurry about the punishment of the wrongdoers. Allah has appointed a time for everything, including their punishment. Their days are being counted, and when the appointed time will come, they will be seized by the divine decree about them, either in this world or in the hereafter. Sometimes Allah does not catch the zalim until the day of judgment. This does not mean that Allah is not helping the believers. There is some wisdom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In one of the ayats of Surah Baqarah, Ibn Kasir rahimahullah writes in the tafsir, the famous hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was resting. One of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum came, because Sahaba, this is the initial time of qurbani and sacrifice, as we mentioned about Khabbab radiallahu anhu and other Sahaba radiallahu anhum. So one day, being tired of all the persecution and atrocities, one Sahabi came and he said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Why don't you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?" In other words, we had had enough. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's face changed and he got serious. He stood up and he mentioned more or less to the nearest meaning that the Anbiya of Bani Israel were given so much torture that an axe, आरी को क्या कहेंगे इंग्लिश में? A saw was taken and the body was cut into two parts, or the flesh was removed from the bones. Okay? If the prophet would be in the tree, they would cut the tree into two pieces. So such was given them. You are getting tired so early. So in the commentary of this, the Mufassirin have written, there's a time for everything. We should not lose hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will test us to a certain level. Once we go and hit that bar, that level, then the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come. So this is what is being mentioned here. Then Allah mentions the situation of the muttaqeen and the mujrimeen on the day of judgment. يَوْمَ نَحْشُرُ الْمُتَّقِينَ, the day, meaning the day of judgment, we will assemble the muttaqeen, the Allah-fearing people, إِلَى الرَّحْمَنِ وَفْدًا, before the all-merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as guests. When guests come to the house, how do we nicely treat them and assemble them? Likewise, the believers will be assembled to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the flip side, وَنَسُوقُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ, and we will drive the sinners. साका या सूको को उर्दू में कहते हैं हंकाना, जैसे जानवरों को हंकाया जाता है. وَنَسُوقُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ, and we will drive the sinners towards Jahannam. إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ وِرْدًا, as the herds of cattle are driven towards water. The cattle are not done ikram and nicely, come on, slowly move. They are literally dragged. So the mujrimeen, the non-believers and the sinners will be dragged like this. لا يملكون الشفاعة, will anybody be able to speak to Allah on the day of judgment? This is the answer. لا يملكون الشفاعة, none will have the power to do shafa'a, intercede. إلا من اتخذ عند الرحمن عهدا, except the one who has entered into a covenant with the all-merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning whomever Allah gives permission, like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the prophets and the angels. وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَلَدًا, a fourth topic, those people who associate son with Allah. وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَلَدًا, they say the all-merciful Allah has got a son. لَقَدْ جِئْتُمْ شَيْئًا إِدًّا, indeed you have come up with such an abominable statement. What is the meaning of abominable? Extremely detested, terribly bad statement. تَكَادُ السَّمَاوَاتُ, what is the result of that statement? تَكَادُ السَّمَاوَاتُ يَتَفَطَّرْنَ مِنْهُ, it is such an abominable statement that the heavens are well nigh, are near, are almost to explode at it. وَتَنْشَقُّ الْأَرْضُ, and the earth to burst apart. وَتَخِرُّ الْجِبَالُ هَدًّا, and the mountains to fall down crumbling. Meaning to associate a son with Allah is so dreadful, is so impactful, that if Allah allows its impact to open up, the mountains will crumble, the sky will burst open, and the earth will tear open. Meaning all the makhluk, the creation of Allah, cannot bear this claim that Allah na'uzu billah has a son. أَنْ دَعَوْا لِلرَّحْمَنِ وَلَدًا, for they have ascribed a son to all Allah, to the all-merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا يَنْبَغِي لِلرَّحْمَنِ أَنْ يَتَّخِذَ وَلَدًا, while it does not behoove, this is not according to the status of Allah, the all-merciful, to have a son. إِن كُلُّ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, there is none in the heavens and the earth, but bound to come to the all-merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِلَّا آتِ الرَّحْمَنِ عَبْدًا, as a slave. Whatever is there in the heavens and the earth, human beings, living things, non-living things, are in the full control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything will come like a slave to Allah. لَقَدْ أَحْصَاهُمْ وَعَدَّهُمْ عَدًّا, so from this ayah onwards, that I just mentioned, the greatness of Allah is being mentioned. لَقَدْ أَحْصَاهُمْ وَعَدَّهُمْ عَدًّا, he has fully encompassed them, everything in the universe, and precisely calculated their numbers. وَكُلُّهُمْ آتِيهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَرْدًا, and each one of them, meaning all the makhluks, the creation, is bound to come to him on the day of judgment all alone. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, surely those who believe and do righteous deeds, سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا, for them the all-merciful Allah will create love. فَإِنَّمَا يَسَّرْنَاهُ بِلِسَانِكَ, again Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being addressed. Wa Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so we have made it, meaning the Quran, يَسَّرْنَاهُ بِلِسَانِكَ, easy through your tongue. For what reason? لِتُبَشِّرَ بِهِ الْمُتَّقِينَ, so that you give with it the good news to the Allah-fearing people, muttaqeen. وَتُنذِرَ بِهِ قَوْمًا لُدًّا, and warn with the same Quran those people who are obstinate, who are stubborn, jo ziddi log hai. وَكَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُمْ مِنْ قَرْنٍ. And again Allah is reminding, and how many a generation we have destroyed before them. هَلْ تُحِسُّ مِنْهُمْ, as we had mentioned a couple of days ago. Allah said to the kuffar in Makkah, you think you are strong? People were way more stronger than you. So this is one of the replies at this occasion. هَلْ تُحِسُّ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ. Do you sense the presence of any one of them? أَوْ تَسْمَعُ لَهُمْ رِكْزًا. Or hear from them even a whisper? Whether it was Qarun, whether it was Fir'aun, whether it was any of the tyrants of the before or rich people of before, we can't even hear their whisper today. There is no sign of them today. People have forgotten. So Allah is saying, don't be arrogant. There were way more stronger people than you. So, and they are gone, you would also be gone one day. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our effort. Whatever was said and heard, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding. Ameen. Subhanallahi wa bihamdi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب